Hi, welcome. So today I've got a unboxing that I'm going to do, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my computer, my laptop, kind of what I've adopted and the reasons why, and then the way that I look at these products and kind of how often I replace them and those types of things. So I'm going to unbox this while I'm talking. So this is, I just received this in the mail today. UPS just dropped it off. This is the brand new MacBook Pro 13-inch that Apple just released. It went on sale last Friday, and I received mine today. Today's June 29th. So this is the 13-inch MacBook Pro. It's the M2 processor variant, and the one that I picked has the 8-core CPU, 16-core GPU, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gig SSD. The reason that I purchased this one specifically is because I wanted something to give me a little bit more horsepower when I'm traveling, to be able to edit videos on the road or on the fly. If I happen to be somewhere else, or I can't be home sitting at my desktop doing video editing. So it'd be good for being on vacation, managing the channel, etc. So historically, I have used this MacBook Air, and this MacBook Air is it's a 13-inch MacBook Air. It's the M1 processor, and it's a 8 gig of RAM, 256 gig SSD. So I think this would be a late 2020, and right now we're in the middle of 2022. So the way that I've always looked at, I keep a Mac laptop and a Mac desktop pretty much at all times. And I tend to be in the mid-range. I don't have a $2,500 machine. This is like a $1,700 machine. My desktop was like an $1,100 or $1,200 Mac Mini. And the Mac Minis start at about $700. So the way that I've always kind of dealt with that, or the reasoning behind that, is Apple makes periodic updates to their products. They tend to come with a 1-year warranty. You can extend that out using the Apple Care. And after a couple of years, they often make significant enough advancements in either the operating system or the architecture that a 3 or 5-year-old machine really can't do all of the things that you would expect a brand new machine to do. So the way that I've dealt with that financially is I have an Apple credit card. It's the white Apple card, and it's like a metal card, and there's an electronic version of it that ends up in your iPhone. And I purchase all of my Macs using the Apple Card. And the Apple Card gives you terms on whatever you buy from the Apple Store. So for anything over $1,000, it's like 12 months interest-free automatically. So what I do is I use that card, and I get my new MacBook 12 months interest-free. I pay for it on a monthly basis, so this will be $130 a month or $120 a month, or whatever the number is, with 0 interest. And then the old one, when I get the new one, the old one I sell on eBay, and I tend to pull somewhere around 75 to 80% of the purchase price out of that on eBay. So, this product, this was, I think, a $1,200 MacBook Air originally. I'll probably pretty easily pull $800 out of that, maybe $900. And that's, fairly normal for me. So that means that, in essence, for me to use this for a year, it cost me about $300. Well, sorry, for me to use this for almost 2 years, it cost me about $300. And that, that works out to $15 a month, $20 a month, something along those lines, for a product that I use literally every day. And this allows me to kind of keep up to date, have a new version, have the most compatibility, have something that's supported, have something that's fast and good to work on, and all of that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through the out-of-box setup, and I'm going to transfer everything from my MacBook Air to this. So if you didn't see in the box, it did come with a USB-C charging cable. It also came with a wall brick. This is a 67-watt USB-C power adapter. The new MacBook Pro has 2 USB-C ports on it. and a headphone port on the other side, and that is all for the ports that are on the computer. So we will pull this off, we will unplug this, and one thing that is helpful for when you're doing this is to have a Thunderbolt cable handy. Apple sells these in the Apple Store, and that's what we're going to use to transfer our stuff from our old machine to our new machine. And there's a bunch of different ways you can do that. You can use Time Machine backups. You can use, I think you can do it through Wi-Fi as well. So we're going to do it this way though. Select your country, United States. Accessibility, not now. I'm going to select my Wi-Fi and enter my Wi-Fi password. Data and privacy, continue. Do I want to migrate? If you have information on another Mac or Windows PC, you can transfer it to this Mac. You can also transfer information from a Time Machine backup or another startup disk. So I want to transfer information from a Mac. Select a Mac, Time Machine backup, or other startup disk to transfer information to this Mac. So it's looking for sources. Make sure the other Mac or disk you're transferring from is connected to the same network or directly connected to this Mac. When transferring from another Mac, open the Migration Assistant app in the Utilities folder and select to another Mac. So I'm going to go to Migration Assistant on this computer, continue, enter in my password. Okay, so I want to transfer information to another Mac, continue. So now it shows up, Jeff's MacBook Air, continue. We're going to enter in the code, connecting. And now the new Mac is going to give me a list of things to transfer. So while it's doing this, we'll talk about the version that I chose. So this new MacBook Pro is available in a couple different configurations. This is the M2 processor, which is the latest processor that Apple has. It was just released a couple of weeks ago. And the M2 is a system on a chip architecture, which means that the graphics processing, the computational processing, and the memory are all on the same chip. And that means that it has very fast direct access to all of the computational horsepower that the computer needs to do its job. What that negatively means for an end user is that it's not really upgradable. So when I buy this system, I can't add more RAM, I can't add more disk space, I can't add more CPU processing power. It is what it is. And that is important to know when you're buying these machines, that you should probably, if you're on the fence between an 8 gig and a 16 gig or this CPU and the next CPU up, you should probably buy up. And there's two reasons. Number one, you can't upgrade. And number two, they hold their value really well. So this one is going to be worth more money than a lesser model would be in 2 years from now when I decide to sell it, because I purchased whatever the new machine is that has come out. So the one that I picked, they have two different M2 processors. This is the upgraded M2 processor. It's the 8-core/10 core, so 8 computing cores and 10 graphics cores. I chose the upgraded processor because I wanted it to be fast at rendering and editing video. And also that means that I'm going to get, in a lot of cases, because the CPU isn't going to be working as hard doing normal tasks, you tend to get really good battery life out of that too when you overbuy the CPU a little bit. I went with 16 gigs of RAM. My previous MacBook Air only has 8 gigs of RAM, and I did that because it was a thin and light machine and I was just using it for web browsing and stuff like that. The YouTube channel didn't exist yet. It wasn't something where I was going to be editing videos. 16 gigs of RAM is going to be very useful when I'm trying to render videos, because the iMovie can regularly use up all of the available RAM in this machine. Not that it negatively impacts performance tremendously, because this machine has very fast access to the solid state disk, so I don't really notice a big performance decrease, but I know that on my Mac Mini I get much better performance than I do on this MacBook Air, and they have very similar specs, with the exception of the Mac Mini having 16 gigs of RAM and this only having 8. I also went with 512 gigs of disk space. Normally I only recommend 256, like when I'm doing stuff for my customers. And the reason that I do that is because I don't want people to store things on their machines. I want them to store things on their servers. I want them to store things in the cloud in places that are backed up. I don't want to have to worry about if this machine gets stolen or broken or something like that, that data gets lost. In my case, I'm editing video on it. And when you're editing a video, if you record a video, like let's say this video ends up being 30 minutes long, that's going to be, you know, a 15 gig file, and then that 15 gig file is going to be modified. It's going to be stored as files inside iMovie when it's doing all the rendering, and then I'm going to end up with a finalized file. So it's very easily for a 10 gig file to take up 30 or 40 gigs of space when you're working on editing it. And there are days when I'll sit down and I'll edit, you know, 10, 15 videos throughout the course of a day. So it's pretty easy for me to use up 200-300 gigs. And this machine had a 250 gig hard drive, but I was using, you know, 60 or 70 of it for other things, for files, for documents, for pictures, for other things. So really I only had about, I don't know, 150 that were free after the operating system and the things that I was storing on it. So with this, having a 500 gig hard drive, I will have around, you know, 400 free to do just video editing with. And again, like I said, it's going to hold its value a little bit better when it comes time to get rid of it. So we see here is that my MacBook Air has finished looking for documents and applications to transfer. We've got a list here of everything it's going to transfer. I can actually drill down and say I want to transfer this or not transfer that or whatever. You know, a large portion of this 90 gigs in my users folder is my email profile for work. So we're going to hit continue. Create a secure password for the administrator account that you wish to migrate. So we're going to set our password. Then we're going to hit continue. Terms and conditions, I agree. Like I mentioned earlier, there are a bunch of different ways that you can migrate the data. You can use your Wi-Fi, you can use an iCloud backup, you can use a bunch of different ways to do it. The Thunderbolt connection is the fastest. It's a direct cable. This cable can do 30 or 40 gig per second, which is a very high transfer rate. Something like Wi-Fi can do 1 to 2 gig per second. Wired Ethernet can do 1 or 2 gig per second. This can do 40, so it's a pretty significantly faster setup. And if we look here, Thunderbolt sampled at 1615 megabytes a second. My Wi-Fi was sampled at 72 megabytes a second, so that's 720 megabits versus 16 gigabits was the speed difference there. So it's transferring the documents. We're going to let this run, and we'll let it do its thing. All right, migration complete. So there's our computer. We'll hit done, and it should have us ask for a login. All right, so once you get everything installed and logged in, you might find that you need to do a software update. So it looks like my Monterey version is already up to date, but my App Store shows a couple different updates. So we'll get those done, which it might just be misreporting because this is showing no updates available. You might find that you need to log back into your accounts. So when you open up, say, Outlook, for example, for the first time, you might find that you need to log into your account. So you should just open up all of your applications and stuff and make sure that everything is logged in and you're good to go. And that's really it. So I'll report back on my thoughts on this after using it for a little bit, but it's been really good so far. The M1 has been really good, so I don't expect this to be much different. So anyway, thank you for watching and have a great day.